Well, welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave, my dear little boolaws, as we get to look at some shitty charts today. Could I interest you in some shitty charts? Because we got some shitty charts right on the screen coming up. Anyways, there is actually quite a few things to talk about right now, even though Bitcoin has been pretty much caught in that very tight range. We still haven't even broken the short-term range from yesterday to today, that very small $200 range between about 90 to 20-ish region, and, well, I guess more like $300 and 95.50-ish region to the upside. But because it is Friday and because Bitcoin is cooling up quite a bit and because all of the momentum also is starting to line up with each other, there's actually some pretty interesting things going on right now. And realistically, does that mean that we could have a move today? Well, you already know. Anyways, as far as the Krown Chain application goes, I should put the focus on that now, as it can be found at app.krownchain.net. It is free, and you're more than welcome to take advantage of it. There will be an update very likely coming probably later tonight, sometime around end of Friday night for the Western Hemisphere of this world. And if you're over here in the Eastern European time zone, then maybe by the time that you wake up on Saturday. So keep an eye out for that. But overall, the focus is on right now the open interest going above the range that we spoke about for the last, that we've been documenting for about the last month or so. Month and a half now, I suppose, as it is above 1.75 billion with a B, and Bitcoin price action moving down at the same time, as volume actually kind of falling off, which is an interesting read nonetheless. However, still need to see a break of the long-term ranges, of which we can now talk about the downside of the range. Well, actually, I'll save that for the charts. Anyways, so for right now, Bitcoin dominance still at that 65%. Nothing to really update there. All the other total market caps, altcoin market caps, more or less the same. Little bit of a down day. And then the crypto fear and greed index ticking down to a 39. Still one of the things that does make me consider that Bitcoin can still keep on climbing the wall of worry here, as realistically Bitcoin's more than 2x off the lows from 4,400, and people are still more or less fearful within this region. An interesting proposition. But with all of that said, it's time to now go into the actual price action charts themselves, and looking at Bitcoin price action on, let's start off with the daily right here. And let me actually go to a fresh chart as well. We are going to see the 10 symbol cross the downside of the 21 right there. Not a death sentence in and of itself, but just kind of eking the probabilities likely back on the side of the downside. And realistically, because now Bitcoin is getting some continuation on the lower term timeframes below this June 15th high right here, this is starting to look a lot more like a lower high. However, still, as we spoke about yesterday, it's not necessarily confirmed until at the very least we have continuation below the 16th of wick low that we saw at 92.27.03, and that's on GDAX, and every exchange will be slightly different. For reference, Bit Mexico is going to be 92.19.5, and Stamp is going to be 92.30.32. Actually, Stamp actually did get a little bit lower right there. But I want to see at least one more. Maybe Finex is actually going to cut this one to the middle, and Finex actually does. So very interesting right there. As I do think that Bitcoin is getting ready for a test to the downside of the range once again. This is not necessarily the picture of health and fitness in the short-term time frames right now, as Bitcoin just starts to curl on over. And realistically, because Bitcoin did break below the 200 exponential moving average right on over here, we have been geared towards the downside in the short term. Bitcoin then obviously got a nice little pick-me-up after that, but the downtrend still emerged from it. So realistically, just following that on the short-term timeframes, that still does hold Bitcoin below about 9,400-ish region. Now, I do think that it's appropriate, at least for my own trading behaviors, to be bearish here, at least in the short-term timeframes, as long as we are below that pivot point from the very short-term timeframes, and realistically still using that spike high that we saw on the 16th of June to just under 9,600. I would still kind of be using that as a trigger for the upside as well. And the same sort of logic does apply, but right now Bitcoin not acting like it, and really the only thing that's making me think that if I was just looking at Bitcoin's chart here, I'd really start to be looking for this next test down to 9,000. The only thing that makes me think that Bitcoin might not be doing that is the fact that traditional markets are looking like they're setting up for a very good weekly close, which as we've been showing for a while, these major markets are correlated on the macro. Now, macro does speak to the long term, so does that mean it's on a day-by-day basis? Well, right now they kind of are on a day-by-day basis, or at least they were for the last month and a half. However, The problem is that when you are talking about the macro, you're talking about the macro, not a day-to-day basis. You're more so talking about a weekly. So still, I need to see 9,000 broken, specifically with force, in order for myself to get like more long-term bearish, looking for that next move back down to low 8,000. The same sort of logic does apply. The same things that we've been saying for the last few weeks here, and that is now coming in. Yeah, actually directly at around 9,000 bucks. I do also have a nice little liquid zone right below it for the horizontal traders. I think both are kind of going to get it one and the same. 89.50 on the horizontal, which I do feel a lot more confident using as a continuation point for the big move to the downside. Like I've been saying, I do think that there would be a pretty nice bounce somewhere right around 81.50-ish region, also a 382 fib, also a big breakout and breakdown from a historical standpoint coming in from this early March breakdown from about 8,000 to 4,400 like a few days later, kind of nasty. And then in April, the big breakout from about 7,500 to 9,500, 10,000 if you want to call it that. Anyways, let me just make sure that I'm recording. I am recording, and the microphone seems to be working as well, so it's good. And what else do I want to say? Yeah, so as long as Bitcoin is below this pivot point right here, again, from a wick high or a 4-hour closing high, I think that 1 hour, I think that both of them get it one and the same. So that would be 9,600 to the upside on a wick, or a 4-hour closure, probably back above 95, or whatever the 200 simple is. Actually, that's at 94.50 right now. Interesting. Interesting. Probably to play it safe, I'd say 95.30, that last little hump that we saw right there. As long as we're below there, it's hard to get bullish for any sort of like a short-term move. However, if Bitcoin can break back above there, I'd still be targeting the same area to the upside, back above 9,800 and 9,900 right here. And this would really start to look a lot better as an actionable ascending triangle. For right now, coming back down to test this area, or at least kind of threatening the posturing of doing that, makes me want to hold my breath for the Bitcoin Bulas right now, as we have tested this trend line a few times, more than a few times now, and the more times that you do test it, the weaker that it does get, as the people supporting that trend line do naturally run out of their dry powder ammo in order to load into that area. So realistically, the bounces are getting weaker and weaker as time goes on, and this will naturally start to look like distribution, especially if Bitcoin makes a lower low on the daily right here, which now we have a nice pivot point below 8,900. So both looking at 9,000 on a 12-hour or a daily close, or just below that last spike low that we saw at 88.95.01 on GDAX, to be exactly specific. That is also 88.92 on BitMexico. Anywhere below there, and then yes, we do have lower lows. We also have lower highs in, and the trend is once again flipped to the downside. And so like I said, I do think that that would kind of spin off some pretty major downside here, likely all the way down, at the very least to 81.50, probably a nice bounce there. I'd want to see it in real time, but realistically, measure move would be pointed all the way down towards the 0.5 at 7,500. Now, keep in mind that, when we're looking at a read like this on historic volatility percentile, this is on a daily, by the way, and by the way, this is on a 2 day, so you can see that they're very comparable here. We'll look at both specifically, but as it stands right now, I mean, this is literally at a fucking zero read. Like it's literally at a fucking zero read. It's literally at a fucking zero read. Very rarely does this happen in Bitcoin's history for this amount of time. We did have a pretty damn good example back on over here in September of 2019. That was the breakdown from about 10,500 down to 6,000 region. So we're talking about 40-50% move. Time before that was even this area over here wasn't as aggressive as what we are at right now, and that was March 2019. That was getting ready for the breakout from 4,000 to 14,000. So big move right there. And then a couple times in 2018, October and November, again, that was kind of getting ready for this major descending triangle to break to the downside. So we're talking about big moves here. If it does break to the downside, I mean, historically speaking, you usually get somewhere between about 40 to 50% move to the downside. So from that price point, or we can just take it from the last high, and from that price point would probably put us, I mean, on a 40% retracement, that would put us down in the low 6,000s, and on a 50% retracement, that actually put us right back down at our prior lows. Very interesting that it does have the confluence with those regions, but still, I want to be very, very deliberately clear with stating this. While I am talking about a lot of downside right now, just like I talk about a lot of upside when we're more close to the resistance, it's not initiated just yet. And until we actually break those critical points, I would not get too excited for something like this. However, historically speaking, as we kind of shown, that would be a pretty specific signature that does have a pretty tested history. I mean, and that gets even more heavily verified on a 2-day chart right here, as we do see, it's going to be an even more aggressive read when it gets lower on a higher time frame. I mean, double the time frame plus same sort of very anemic read right there. I mean, it's not anemic. I mean, it is what it is as far as volatility goes. But again, putting in perspective, this was, on a 2-day, we haven't seen anything like this since, November 2018. And before that, we saw May 2018. I think both of these were actually big downside moves. So it is kind of interesting that usually when volatility does get relatively low and we are expecting an expansion phase, it actually does come on downside plays. Now, I wouldn't say that that's always going to be true, of course, but it is ancient knowledge that in traditional markets, typically speaking, when volatility goes up, it's usually because downside is coming. So again, I'm referencing this area right here and this area right here, and at no point in the beginning of 2019 did we get this low as well. Very interesting. But of course, there are going to be examples where we do have upside as well. This one's a damn good one right here in October 2016 before a major massive move from six. I mean, this is obviously very impressive, looking at it like this, but in real time, this still kind of just looked like it was just kind of trending here, overall good, overall fine. But again, that one actually did produce some pretty damn nice upside. This one, of course, as well on the flip up. So we're looking at, historically speaking, we're looking at big reversal points or just big swaths of price action being based upon this next expansion phase coming from this area. So as long as this base does hold, technically speaking, I shouldn't get too damn bearish. But the second that we do break below that prior low is the second that this starts to look like a confirmed reversal. And then you really have to, or at least I really have to be thinking that with volatility entering into an expansion phase, we're very likely to continue that trend for perhaps another 40 to 50% if historically if history is anything to go off of. Now, of course, that's not the way that I trade. However, I keep things rather simple, to be honest with you. We talk about all these more advanced concepts on this channel, but that's more so for analysis purposes. As far as trading goes, I mean, realistically, I only need a few pieces of edge. I mean, there's actually even been studies that have shown that more than 3 pieces of edge actually has a detrimental effect. Just you'll have too many confounding variables in there, is what I would think would be happening with that. Anyways, Jesus Christ, man, getting way out of the way here. Anyways, so yes, we talked about downside targets. 7,500 would be extremely heavily implied on that. If we do break to the downside, like I said, bounce somewhere around the 382. Historically speaking, nice area right there. Same thing for the 0.5, and then the 618 is really the what do I want to call that? That's the one that I look at to kind of get the macro level, actually, as when Bitcoin does break back down below there, it's no longer just a retracement. It's a full-on. It's a full-on macro reversal. And when I'm talking about a macro reversal, I would be looking for a retest of these lows here in the mid 4,000s if that were to happen. But of course, I do think that the 0.5 and the 618 will equally actually have a decent chance to reverse it if Bitcoin were to break down in the first place. So again, I need to be very careful with the way that I relate my words here, because people might hear that and they'll say Krown's extremely bearish, he's looking for a massive downside price action. Like, no. Only until the trigger is hit. Until the trigger is hit, we're just playing in this range of boredom and absolute desperation. I mean, it's if you're watching these videos right now and you're actually actively trading Bitcoin, I mean, shout out to you. I pour one out for you. But at the same time, I mean, Jesus Christ, man, this is mind-numbingly flat action right here. And for the options trader, this is one of those times where it's a little bit scary as well, because you don't really want to be selling. You don't really want to be selling premium right now. I mean, the historical volatility percentile is so fucking low that you just don't know when you're going to get that next explosion. So it is hinting that we are going to get a big breakout soon. And realistically, with Bitcoin price action looking like this heading into the weekend, well, let's go look at something nice. Let's go look at NASDAQ futures once again. And they're still bullish. Here's my problem with being bearish on Bitcoin is that if these markets are correlated, which the data shows that they are, I'm not bearish on any chart that looks like this at all whatsoever. I'm actually looking for new all-time highs, assuming that we close this weekly anywhere above 98.50-ish region. Very strong chart. Overall, we got the pullback that we were looking for into the 93.50-ish liquid zone right here. The reaction was phenomenal. And so I do think that that was the pullback that that I was talking about likely happening around the end of this month. In fact, it looks like it happens about around the middle of this month. Fair enough. I don't think that timing is something that I can do anyways, but just kind of playing around with numbers there, and now having a very good reaction here. So I do actually would say that any sort of a close above 98.50, and I'm looking for further continuation to new all-time highs over the next few weeks, next month, whatever it ends up being. And does that influence Bitcoin? Well, we do see that in the past quite aggressively. I don't necessarily want to look at the correlation charts right now, as I'll save that for Sunday's fun time, just so that we can have something to talk about over a fucking weekend. Because if you think this is boring, I have a strange feeling that if history is anything to go off of, that the weekend's going to be boring too. Interesting. Anyways, let's go check out E-mini futures for SPY, and looking about the same thing. Not as strong as NASDAQ futures, so I do believe that NAS is leading. And when I say NAS, I really mean Microsoft and Apple, because they seem to be doing all the heavy lifting on that indice, or on that index, I should say. But a pretty good reaction here off the 21 and 55 cross. I mean, this is all looking good, at least for another try back up to the prior spike high at 323 region. Now, if that does get taken out, I'd look for a full-on extension all the way back up to 330-ish or 325, or no, 333 region back up here, fill the gap, and then we'll go from there. But I'd imagine that by that point, Nasdaq's going to be making new all-time highs. It's just going to be too fucking strong. So again, it's one of those things, the good old counter trade, right? As everyone's super bearish on traditional markets, unfortunately, doesn't look like the market agrees with you. And of course, the market's always wrong. So if you just say the market's stupid, then your money will come back. And that's life. That's life, son. Flash that meme on the screen right now. Anyways, looking at gold price action, looks very constructive here as well. I actually do like gold's chart. Plus I like traditional markets chart. Hey, where's my fucking hedge, huh? Where's that goddamn hedge? No, I hedged all into Bitcoin. Oh, that's great. So, you hedged into Bitcoin, so that means your Bitcoin position is, it's not doing great right now, but at least it's flat. But your NASDAQ position is doing great, right? No, man, I hedged all the way in. That's what I imagine people who talk about the crypto hedge to fucking do. Is they're like, I'm hedging my finances by buying crypto. Oh, great idea, man. How much percentage did you go in there? I hedged it, so 100%. It's like well, I'm not. Could I interest you in my Beanie Baby hedge? Like, Jesus Christ, man. This thing is going to turn into fucking Beanie Babies if we put another macro high here. Wait, I didn't say that. We're going to be turning this into the futures fortress soon enough. Back off this bullshit, man. If Bitcoin puts another macro high here, and a macro high, to be fair, is not going to be had anytime soon. Below 6,900, though, we got problems. It's just a good number. But if Bitcoin does put in a macro high here, I mean, this is not going to look like a good chart if that were to happen. Now, I mean, remember, this is what the real chart looks like, and this is what Bitcoin's been doing for the last 3 years now, almost, or a little bit more, or is that more than 3 years, or just around 3 years? I think it's just around 3 years. So to put another macro high here, at the very best case for Bitcoin, I mean, that would probably suggest that I'm not going to get any of that Moonium for a while. But still, like I've been saying, until Bitcoin actually breaks this area and confirms all those things that we spoke about, that's more so bearish wet dreams as well. Just like I think it's very important to not fall into the bull gang where it's just you're always bullish. Don't want to fall into the bear gang either. It's the same mind fucking virus where people just want to associate with a team rather than be a trader. Anyways, like I've been saying, as long as Bitcoin's below 9,600 though, I don't really see any bullish things here, even on the short term. If Bitcoin does get back above it though, I look for an extension back up here, and then things start to look pretty damn good once again. That would start to initiate hidden bullish divergence, or continuation divergence as I like to call it, on the 2-day chart, which is still very much present. But Bitcoin's at a do or die situation, cannot confirm a local high here. If that happens, big problems. But for right now, it actually, it can still very easily pull through. Let's go see what the low-term time frame momentum oscillators look like right now. And 4-hour Stokes are going to be headed down. They're actually nosediving quite aggressive. They're going to be hitting this trend line, of course. Or I guess I already have it in there. And I really want to see that bounce for the Bulas. And momentum will remain to the downside naturally on the 4-hour as long as Bitcoin price action is below 9,400. So where exactly is that? By the way, well, that so interestingly does line up directly with the 200 simple right here on the 4-hour. So 94.50, as long as Bitcoin's below there, even from a short-term time frame perspective. Now cutting this range in the middle, I'm just not bullish in any way, shape, or form if that continues. Also, by the way, the 4-hour death cross is gonna naturally draw closer and closer the longer that Bitcoin spends below the 200 exponential average, which is $100 lower than the 200 simple at 93.50ish region. So keep that area in mind as well, as Bitcoin is quite literally below it right now, and this is confirming multiple closes below at the current moment in time, or at least in the progress of for the next 2 hours and 20 minutes and 16 seconds. Going through the other lower term time frames, we see 3-hour coming from the same area as well, and 3-hour momentum will remain to the downside as long as Bitcoin price action is below 93.85 on a closing basis. On the 2-hour, showing 9,400, same logic applies, also coming from the same area. Usually when I see all these guys line up from the same area, which the hourly is as well, we do see price action go in that direction as well. On the lower term time frame, tapping into the lower term time frame range that is, which at this point, Bitcoin's kind of already there, so it doesn't really have too much. It doesn't really have too many places to run and hide right now. And momentum on the hourly will remain to the downside as long as Bitcoin price action is closing below 93.25. Now that's all interesting, but let's line it up with the 12-hour, which the 12-hour is looking droopy. Yes, it is bouncing off the 89 exponential average, looks like again, but here's the problem with it now is that it looks more like a bearish reset to me more than anything, as we are seeing the 12-hour Stokes come back up, test around the bullish control zone, but Bitcoin price action has just been sliding down the stripper pole all the way back down towards that last prior local low on the 12-hour. So from a 12-hour closing basis below 9100, that would really start to constitute a downtrend here. There's your high, there's your lower high, there's your low, there's your next lower high, there's your lower low, and we'd be continuing to trend. Again, does that constitute a break of the 9,000 critical region on a 12-hour close? No, still need to see that happen, but just kind of like edging it one step closer and closer, and keep in mind that 12-hour Stokes will cross to the downside naturally as long as Bitcoin price action closes next dildo below 92.87 spot 70, and then we'd be rejecting the bullish control zone plus turning back down, and you can see that the momentum over time has just been trending down there, which to me is not looking all that strong. But still, I'd still be saying that, pretty much the same thing as I said yesterday. As long as we're kind of playing within the range of the 17th of June's 12-hour dildo right here, range between 92.27 spot 03 to the downside and 95.58 spot 48 to the upside. I don't really see anything resolved on the short-term time frames, but as you can see, it's also very close, very close. But it is by no mistake that it did reject going below those prior lows by just a few bucks, literally $2 or a little bit less than $2 on that live drive down here earlier this morning for myself. So keep that in mind as we do kind of trudge our way through this. 12-hour RSI, a little bit more on the bear side as well, losing its footing below the exponential and back into the bearish control zone. Don't necessarily like that. 12-hour historical volatility percentile looks like it's contracted quite a bit and getting ready to expand. Look at the moving average on this, by the way. The moving average is actually once again pointed north, so it does typically get those nice expansion phase right after the slope change on this, which you can see right here. You can even see, can almost even see it as like a trend, and that's emerging as a downtrend is being hinted at. Plus, Bitcoin's a lot closer to the downside resolution of this range than the upside. So I'd imagine that by now the probabilities are going to start to really shift in the favor of the bear. So let's actually go check that out. The video's already been 23 minutes long. It feels like a little bit on the shorter side right now. So looking at the probability chart right here, let's put it on a daily and let's get those ranges right. I'm going to do 92.20, or where exactly was that area? Let's make exact sure. Yeah, 92.27 spot 03. Okay, interesting. I'm just gonna make it I'm just gonna make it 9,200 just for a nice round even number. And for the upside, I'll apply the same logic, 9,600 again. That's just coming in from the high of this last little spike right there. And let's see what that would show on the probability chart. And what do you know? The downside probability is obviously a lot higher. I wouldn't say a lot higher, but it is certainly higher. It does favor the bears right now. Obviously, we're a lot closer to that region as well, so it would naturally make sense. As the above target probability is about 29.79%, and the downside probability below that region is 35.36. But keep in mind that both of those triggers do not constitute a resolution of the long-term range, only the short-term. Which can obviously have implications with the long term. And, I'd say breaking to the downside right here wouldn't necessarily look all that great for the Boulas, but I'd probably be looking for another bounce off of 9,000, and then the bounce just like, flounders during the weekend, something like that. By the same token, to the upside, I'd be looking for, as we've been saying, an extension back up to about 98, 9,900 region. But the ranges here are very tight. They're tight like a tiger. They're very sexual, and Goldfinger is ready. ready with the tools necessary for what's going on right now. Looking at the 12-hour for the probability chart as well, we do see actually the downside probability is still higher, 23.38% to the upside versus 27.87% to the downside. But here's the thing: when you do have probabilities this high on both sides, it's kind of, yes, the downside probability is more, absolutely. But when they're that high, what it's really saying is that both of them are very likely to happen. It's saying that a move is extremely likely to happen right now. A move that actually matters. So I do think that this is really the time to be paying attention to Bitcoin. I did say that yesterday as well. Obviously, I guess I was more or less wrong on yesterday's, even though things did happen. We did break back down below the 200 exponential average, but not getting that flush in a price action that you'd expect from a read like that. So fair enough. Let's go check out some of the other top shitcoins in this market. These highly altruistic and very highly advanced pieces of technology, Mr. Buterol being one of them. Looks like he's slumping down. Nice. This one looks, as we've been saying for a while, this one looks a lot more bearish than Bitcoin. And what also really is a little bit scary here is, well, the long term. I mean, that looks like another lower high to me. I guess you can still make an excuse for it as long as it's closed in weeklies above like 225 region. But the second that it goes below 210, 215 is the second that you got problems. Whatever the low is of this week, 218 actually, a little bit higher than that. Looking like rejection of the 200 simple and 200 exponential average on the weekly, and daily looks like distribution. Looks a lot more obviously like distribution here. Are we going to bounce off the 200 simple and 200 exponential average once again? Perhaps yes, but what do you have here? You have a nice little descending trend line, kind of marking off this as a descending triangle after your nice little distribution top right here. That's actually kind of classic Wyckoff, getting ready before the next the next move down. However, I would like to see a break below this area right here, 225, on at the very least a 4-hour. However, if Bitcoin pulls through here, so will Buterol. I don't think that Buterol leads right now. Litecoin, also very problematic on just about all time frames that matter. Daily looks absolutely atrocious. Same sort of logic here applies though. Can Bitcoin be the savior that this market needs but doesn't deserve? Maybe, yes. At least I wouldn't look for it to fall off the face of the earth. But this is the weekly. That looks really good. That looks really good. That looks really good, sir. I also hate money, so, well, nice. But Litecoin is like silver to Bitcoin's gold. You're right, it is like silver. You're right, it is like silver. Oh, it's very much like silver. So fucking dumb. Oh my god. Let's go check out Ripple Me Nipples. Oh, wow. That looks like something I should invest in. Okay. This is the banker's coin. Right. Okay. So that was enlightening. People think that this thing's going to, what was it, $550? I hope it does. I actually hope it does. I don't own any Ripple or anything like that, but If it goes to $550, I think the worlds might have fallen apart if that happens. Likely. Let's go check out GBDC. GBDC already kind of breaking down too, back down to the daily 55. So that would be similar to, 9100 right here. Let's go back to GBDC because it typically does lead to the downside overall, and perhaps there are some interesting things going on there right now. Let's see, $10.5. Very close to marking a lower low right there, but not so, but no cigar. Let's see. What else do we have here? GBDC to get that same sell signal on the daily jewel right here. Actually, a little bit more obviously too. And did it get it before spot price action? It got it on this area right here. No, I think they got them at about the same time. Let's go run this one through. So the sell signal happened right here, confirmation right here, and then sliding down the stripper pull after that. You know, I guess if you are playing that position, I'd just be looking at this as your last little kind of pivot high. Although I did not play that position because Krown is a fucking moron and thinks that he knows that he's better than the jewel. It's silly, but Jesus Christ, man! Even after all this time, still don't learn my lessons in some ways. Let's go check out a little bit of forex, maybe some euro dollar action as the weekly comes to a close here. Looking like a rejection of the 200 simple, but is it all over? I think I'm still watching the monthly for direction on this one. Monthly below 112, and I'd be looking for a retest of the lows at 109. But as long as we close above 112, I probably do look for at least a short-term reversal here. But man, that looks like it's under pressure. Let's go back to Dixie. I'm curious how that one's doing. It looks like it had a nice little day yesterday. Still following the uptrend, so hard to be bearish on this one. It looks like another bounce off the 200 simple, as we spoke about. I believe it was yesterday. Did we look at this one yesterday? No, maybe the day before. I'd be looking for a move back up to 98.85, 86 region. Looks good for some short-term upside. However, did have I wouldn't necessarily call that a weekly sell signal. This one over here was. Let's see where price action was. Decent trade. Not phenomenal, but okay. Okay, cool. Let's go check out Bitcoin versus yen. Just trying to see if there's anything that's not represented on U.S. spot markets here. Looks about the same chart, a little bit more aggressive to the downside, and did make. It didn't really make new lows there. Still need to see this area taken out right here. Korean won has a lot of room actually there. Very interesting. But overall, you know, I think that we can go back into the GDAX charts right here and just kind of mark it up with a few things, a few closing statements, I suppose. As long as Bitcoin's below 9,600, I'm not even really like short-term bullish. If Bitcoin could move back above, let's call it the 200 simple, which is right in the middle of this range, which is just not fucking helpful right now. You know, I'm saying things that I would not do myself. I want to be very clear with this. I'm not trading this right now. I am long. I'm long volatility and I'm long deltas right now. So I'm playing options, but I'm not interested in playing ranges like this on spot. This is way too close to myself. Doesn't mean that you can't do it. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of people out there making shit tons of money, and that's awesome. I'm actually very happy for you. But for myself, you know, the only spot plays that I'll make are below this area right here, still 9,000 and rising, or on a horizontal break on a full hour below 8,900, more conservatively. By the same, you know, and I do think that we're going to slide down there. It's looking likely here. Also, probability showing painting a more bearish picture in that direction as well. For the upside, you know, in this area right here, kind of the fuckboy area now, as long as we're below 9,600, it's just another lower high as far as I'm concerned. But above 9,600 though, I would look for a retest of 9,900 and then 10,000, and then that's going to really set it up for looking relatively good. I forgot to look at CMEs here. Let's actually go look at CMEs. CMEs closing for the weekly. If it closed like this, fine. You know, still kind of leaves the hope up coming into next week, but really don't want to see it close below 90.50-ish this week. If it closed below 90.50-ish, then we got problems. Then we do have, continuation of lower highs and lower lows on a weekly closing basis. So that's a level that I watch. I wouldn't really make too much out of the lower timeframes other than that. You know, could Bitcoin pop back up here and just green dildo its way to the skies? Yeah, absolutely. But still, I need to see. I'm just not interested in upside as long as below 9,600, because this area right here is just too small for me to trade. It's not enough meat on the bones. But you can kind of see the short-term ranges, one of them being where the 200 exponential average is at 93.50 on a 4-hour close, 200 simple at 94.50. So for like the truly deprived and degenerate traders, those are the pivots that I'll be using right here. But still, would I be trading that? Absolutely not. Above 9,600, yeah, I'd be looking for extension up here, and then potentially to 10.5, 11,000, as that would 10.5 and then 11,000, as that would fulfill the measured move to the top side right there. But still looking at the short term right here at about 89.50 for a downside resolution if we just cut those to the middle, or just a wick below our last spike low, which is again 89.95.01 on GDEX. So with that said, I'll leave you off. It's actually midsummer day here in Finland, so it's kind of like a holiday. It's literally sunny the whole fucking day, so the sun does not go down for 1 second, and people go crazy, including myself. but I want to wish everyone a happy midsummer if you are celebrating. If not, I want to wish you a happy, just regular Friday, man. Have a fucking good Friday in your life. Anyways, I'll be signing off now. Take care, and until next time.